Hey folks, Ryan Kennedy here. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I want to kick things off here with a question. What if there was a miraculous drug that makes you lose excess body fat, improves cognitive performance, alleviates depression, relieves pain, enhances your sexual performance, helps you sleep, reduces stress, makes you live longer, and just downright makes you feel incredible? Now, that's a monster list of benefits that I think everyone listening to this desires on some level. But you're probably thinking, if there's a drug that does this, the side effects must be terrible and the cost must be outrageous. Well, what's crazy is that it's free and there's no harmful side effects. So what is this miraculous thing I'm alluding to? It's called exercise, and it's a freaking miracle drug, people. It's been proven time and time again in countless studies to do all the things I just listed, plus more. And we're going to be diving deep on today's episode into the mental and emotional benefits of exercise and how movement can literally transform your quality of life. My guest today is John Kempf, who is the perfect person to chat about this topic with, since he credits exercise as the thing that literally saved his life. John specializes in helping people optimize their health and performance in a holistic way using movement, nutrition, and mindfulness. He's a strength coach. He's a mobility coach. He's a yoga teacher. He's been training clients for over a decade. And so I'm really excited for this conversation since I was introduced to John by my good friend, Brandon. Shout out to Brandon Collinsworth, who is notorious for connecting me with epic humans. So I know this is going to be a great conversation. So John, I'd like to start things off here by hearing more about how and why you got into this field of holistic health and fitness.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Ryan. It's truly a pleasure to be here, man. Shout out to Brandon as well. When he connected us, I knew that this was going to be awesome just because we share a lot of similar beliefs about the power and potency of these natural medicines, low cost, no cost stuff. I'm so passionate about this stuff, so I'm really excited to share. And I'll just take it back to the roots when I was in middle school-ish, and I was going through some seriously challenging times in the family environment, and exercise was at that point just a way for me to move emotions through my body, to just have a source of therapy for the anger and the frustration that I was feeling as a kid. Because when you're younger, you don't necessarily have the ability to control your environment as the more that we do now as adults. And so obviously you can, hit points of frustration. And the only thing that I could think of doing was moving my body and just sweating and pushing and exerting energy to help get this out of my system, get that anger, get that tension out of my system. And I mean, I was just a kid. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was listening to Godsmack, just, I hate my life. Oh, I'm so angry.
Yeah.
And that truly was, now looking back, the start of my journey. And typically when people talk about their story over the long term, when you hit that point, I think it was Steve Jobs said something like, you can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. They're just stars, random dots on a graph moving in the direction of the future until you can look back in the past and see all those all connect. Those different memories, experiences make a larger story, a constellation. And I can see that now in my journey, how the shadow, the kind of like negative aspect of why I was exercising was just for therapy, just for relief, to get this stuff out of me and not be in my head and thinking about the things that were going on at home. And so that really led me then into, I was already athletic as a kid as far as playing sports a lot. I played a lot of baseball, played a lot of football, and football was really the saving grace for me coming into high school, where I was able to control that aggression and channel that rage into something that gave benefit to my life and those around me, being able to, positively contribute to the success of the team, to support my brothers, my comrades, my teammates, and, to have that sense of pride of accomplishment by doing a good job, being seen and recognized by my coach. And so that truly was the biggest outlet for me, is to be able to move my body and exercise and engage in something active that was allowing me to get all that energy, that emotion out of my body. And weight training, I started weight training when I was 14, 15 years old. And that was where I really started to see the benefit. It wasn't just I'm exercising to get this rage out of my body, but I was starting to realize I was developing and cultivating skills beyond the physical realm. I was gaining mental fortitude. I could endure suffering for an extended period of time, which is something I'm all about. I really think leaning into resistance in all areas of your life is one of the best things you can do to grow into that person that you want to be and have those things that you want to have. You got to be able to lean in and have that resilience. And that was something that I learned through weight training. Arnold Schwarzenegger has a quote. It's something like, building physical strength in the gym builds mental character and fortitude and will, and all these skills I started to develop from weightlifting, and I definitely used it as a source of therapy, but it also shaped me into the man that I am today. The iron sharpens iron, and all of those quotes that, if you put in effort and struggle with the best of your ability, doesn't matter if you win or lose at that point, you've given your best effort. And so I just started to notice how exercise started cultivating these other skills in my life. And, we're holistic beings. So having exercise, develop my emotional resilience and ability to maintain composure in my home environment. And, having the ability to lean into things and complete tasks that weren't necessarily super appealing to me, related to like academics or whatever it was. I was building all these skills from exercise beyond just working out to lose weight. And so that was kind of like where the access point was for me of coming in, and exercise really was what allowed me to channel that anger and that aggression. I know for certain if it wasn't for football, I probably would be dead or in jail. Like, it was my opportunity to really allow myself to express those emotions in a safe and controlled environment, quote unquote, safe and controlled football.
Yeah.
But somewhere that I was allowed to do that. And that's kind of like what started my journey into the profession of being a strength and conditioning coach in college. And I was a student intern in college, and then became a personal trainer. And because of the unhealthy lifestyle in my upbringing, it was always a big passion for me to try to help my family members, improve the health of my family members. And being a first generation college student, I had no idea I didn't even think I was going to go to college. I had no understanding of what that process was even like. And eventually I did end up going to college. And then I remember my sophomore year, I saw some flyer for kinesiology. Kinesiology, what is that? And it's just like a one-page flyer on, these are the things you learn about the body and movement and exercise. And I was like, oh my God, these are like all my passions. Like, I can literally get a degree that will lead to me, getting a professional career, a job in the field of exercise. And like, at that point, I was like, I can get paid to work out. I can get paid to help others work out. I can use this passion that I have and this kind of foundation of skills that I've developed from my teenage years from exercise and strength training to improve the life quality of others, which is always something I really wanted to do. I really wanted to help my family members to improve their life quality, because I was a witness to the suffering in my family environment. And that was really hard for me. So exercise as a way to help people the way it helped me was a dream. I'd never even considered it until I saw this flyer. And I went and saw my advisor, and I got signed up as a kinesiology undergrad, and the rest is history from there. Just learning and building on exercise and adding the different components of holistic health, like nutrition and sleep and meditation and mindful living and well-being and all those things that contribute to optimizing human health and performance so you can be happy and strong and go about your life and do so in a way that benefits everybody, including yourself.
Yeah, we have a lot of parallels there with my own path. And most people really do associate exercise as changing, your physical body. Like, I want to get stronger. I want to lose some body fat. I want to improve my physique for, a number of reasons that a person might have, but they don't really have the same focus on how it's going to transform their mindset and their ability to work towards goals and their discipline and their overall commitment in accomplishing something. And then I love what you shared about leaning into that resistance. That's huge, because I love the saying. It's become somewhat of a cliche, but when you make hard choices, your life is easy. When you make easy choices and you take the easy path, your life gets pretty damn hard. And exercise is a perfect example of that. And so that is why I'm such a big proponent of this, because going through as a younger child, I didn't have as many anger or pent up frustration issues. Mine was more of the loss of my mom of cancer and going through a lot of hardships from that standpoint. The thing that kept me out of dark states of depression and just really downward spiral, because I didn't have much parental guidance after the age of 16, was fitness, was exercise, was athletics, was moving my body and creating these positive emotions. And at the time, I didn't put one and one together either. I just knew if I trained, I felt better. And if I didn't, I felt lousy. And it was as simple as that. It was just like, this makes me feel good physically, mentally, emotionally, and makes me feel good about myself. I'm accomplishing something. I'm doing something productive that's bettering myself, bettering my body, bettering my life. And so that's something I really like to highlight. In athletics, man, I think that's something every child needs to experience, because that's how I made friends. That's how you learn how to connect with people on a social level. It's how you build that camaraderie. It's how you also, same thing as the exercise component, really set out to accomplish something. You find that discipline and really that straight path that carries over into every aspect of your life. So that is freaking huge. And one of the things I want to kind of go into next is on this topic of depression, because it's the number one disability worldwide. Hundreds of millions of people in the US alone are suffering from clinical depression, and many go the pharmaceutical route. But I think a lot of it can be solved biochemically and, psychologically by just moving your body, getting out and doing some exercise, getting out in the sunshine, exposing yourself to these elements, like you said, whether it's a cold plunge or whether it's the sauna. And a lot of people I talk to, and people in my life who are going through hardships and dealing with bouts of depression, they're like, how are you so happy all the time? You must be blessed or lucky that you have some sort of godly like neurochemistry. And I'm like, dude, if I lived the way you live, if I sat inside, I didn't exercise, I didn't get outdoors, I was under artificial junk light watching TV, I'd be depressed as shit in just a few days. Like, it wouldn't even take that long for me to feel absolutely awful. And so I want you to speak on that too. It's just the mental and really neurochemical changes that take place when you do a consistent form of training, whatever that might look like.
Man, this is so good. I really I appreciate that we're taking this conversation down this route, because it's the untalked about part of all of this. And man, everybody, anxiety or depression, they're just different sides of the same coin in a sense. And this is another reason why I'm a huge fan of your work, because I preach this so much, that we have control of our genetic expression through the field of epigenetics. Mm-hmm. I love the analogy of Texas Hold'em, where your genetics are like the two cards that you get. You can't change those. You've got a 2 and a 7. You've got a 2 and a 7.
Yeah.
Some people, they've got 2 aces. They've got Olympian parents,
Yeah.
How you engage with your environment, the 5 cards on the table, makes or breaks your hand. And a lot of people, I think, are, as this field grows, the knowledge of this field grows, it's really empowering for a lot of people. I remember when I was reading this stuff, and this is really, I feel like this conversation will touch on that at a later point, but where nutrition and those other forms of nutrition beyond food per se are also key factors in the regulation of your health and well-being and your epigenetic expression. And specifically from the perspective of depression, I can speak on this because that is the 2 cards that I have in my genetic hand will express depression if I don't manage those environmental factors appropriately. Like you said, we're just good at managing through practice. N equals one. We are the science experiment. Try something out, observe, conclude, tinker with the variables, repeat the study, and just continuing to refine the process, being the scientist and the experiment. You get to see what works and what doesn't work. And like you said, it's not like when we were 15 years old, we had an intellectual understanding of this, but there was an intuitive body wisdom that said, hey, that felt good, do that again. And if you go too long without it, you're like, hey, knock, knock, like kind of feeling shitty, man. Like,
Yep.
do some regulation of your lifestyle factors. And some of the biggest ones, even just from the physical lens, would be exercise or even movement. I think is kind of the larger umbrella to discuss, because exercise can bring with it a lot of judgments versus, movement. We all move, we all have a human body. And when we move, certain things happen.
Yep.
You can call that exercise. You can call that dance. You can call that working the fields for a day, like farming and gardening. Like that could be considered a form of exercise without having to think about like, neon shorts and squats. And, like there's such a skew, especially with social media, on what really exercise is now. But just from the lens of therapy, I can attest to this so strongly in my own life, where especially at those points where you feel frustrated or that you don't have control, you can really go down that spiral. And the apathy was something that was that I had to deal with myself personally, where you'd be laying in bed and you want to get out of bed and go do something, but you just can't even will yourself to do it. And then the shame and the guilt that you put on yourself for that is really the heavy blanket. Like that's intense. And I'm someone, like, I've been a leader, I've been a captain in my whole life. I've always taken positions of leadership, and I hold the bar of expectation very high for myself. And that is a double-edged sword, because when you're in those states of apathy or you're not producing at your highest, that judgment of yourself is even stronger, which is only going to feed back into that negative spiral even more. And I definitely promote exercise to people that are dealing with anxiety or depression, just for that biochemical cocktail that you get from exercise. And I mean, just going down to the most basic level of exercise and movement in general reduces inflammation on so many levels systemically. And inflammation is essentially one of the largest problems that we're dealing with, and causes the turning up of the genes that express disease and turning down of the genes that express health. And so just looking at it in the way that you described it in the beginning was so great, because it's this panacea for so many things, but it also is like perfectly set up to make you have to achieve that. You have to do something, you have to act, you have to actually put forth the effort to reap the reward of exercise, versus what we've been conditioned to believe over time with social media and modern industry. It's not a bad thing. It's just what it is. It's a tool that's been misused by those looking to create, selfish gains, where, hey, you buy this pill, you don't have to do anything. It's you just sit there and buy all you have to do is give me your money. They make that decision so easy for somebody, and they make it so emotionally compelling by playing on, it's psychology 101 stuff, studying that in college. I'm like reading the Psych 101 textbook, and I'm like, oh my God, this must be the book that every advertising company ever has read, because it's like exactly how to manipulate somebody's mind into getting them to do what you want. And I think we've just been sold that fast food, fast results, fast, quick, easy. And instead of embracing like, yeah, it's good, and that usually is the beauty of things, where it's, if you put some effort, not even an intense, insane amount of effort, just a little bit of effort consistently applied over a long period of time equals a compounding return on investment, and I think that's the biggest thing to to convey to people is remove the idea and judgments and perspective that you have on exercise based on what you've been conditioned to believe exercise is from social media and from the fitness industry selling you the body by Jake, whatever, six-pack beach body kind of look.
Yeah.
And just go to the movement conversation of like, dude, just move your body. Like it literally doesn't matter how you move it. And from that, the best advice I have for people is just do what you like to do.
That's the key. That's the key, man.
And I mean, that's number one. If you can start to add other components on that, you know, synergize the effect, for example, move your body. Okay, we know moving the body. And like, to me, this is a lecture that I have on my nutrition course, epigenetic expression and lifestyle factors, how to manage your health and fitness using that information. And essentially you've got external factors and internal factors, and both of those influence your genes. And, you know, some external factors, not even to name them all, would be exercise, sleep, nutrition via food, water, air, and sunlight. And then you have internal factors like your microbiome, your inflammation levels, your immune system, all of the different lymphatic system, all the different systems of the body. If you can manage appropriately the internal and external factors, you will express ideal, optimal health. Like it really is that simple. All you have to do is then realize, oh, it's on me.
Yeah.
It's not a pill in a bottle. Like I have to be the one that takes responsibility for my health. And that really is why I love the word sovereignty. Being independent of any kind of system that you require support from. You know, in that idea of detaching from a story somebody else told you and creating your own story and using the information, you know, knowledge and application. The information is out there. There's a lot of it. It can be confusing, but a lot of it is the basic stuff, just like move your body. And we know, okay, sunlight. And this is one thing I love about the work that you do is you're really big on sunlight. And sunlight to me is one of the biggest medicines for depression. It has absolutely been the game changer for me. That's why I moved to Hawaii. The primary reason was to get more sunlight. I was in Washington prior, and they call it the Seattle Blues during winter time because it's so gray and so dark, and you're above the 35th parallel, so you're not getting adequate UV, which means you're not making enough vitamin D and all the other things that sun does for you. It's just such an incredible medicine. And the combination of movement and sunlight, you know, that's why the number one recommendation to people is go for a walk outside. Clears your mind, fresh air in your lungs, sun on your skin, pumping the water wheel. You're getting all your fluids moving, gaseous exchanges, metabolic rate, all of it. It's all, everything moves when you move. And it's that simple. And it's like, okay, then it's just prescription, you know, what's the effective dose? How do I apply that into my individual life when I have X amount of kids and this job and all those other things? And that's where individual program design comes in, and you start to find some of those more fine-tuned layers that you can really specialize with somebody. But ultimately it's, hey, take back control of your own health and start moving your body. If you just applied that principle, I think it's like 150 minutes a day, or excuse me, 150 minutes a week is the recommended prescription, which comes out to about 20 minutes a day, which, I mean, that's 20 minutes to go for a walk outside every day. Like that's not asking very much. And especially if the return on investment is so impactful that it, you know, gets you out of bed or like helps you not be depressed. Like getting out of pain, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional pain, is such a catalyst that it creates such a desire in people, myself included, to do those things. And the funny thing is, I'm sure you can relate to this. The more you do those things and the longer that you do them, when you don't do them, the contrast is so significant.
Oh yeah.
You notice it. Like if I don't get 2 nights in a row of not getting adequate amount of sleep, or a few days in a row without moving my body or getting sunlight, like sunlight's almost a daily requirement for me at this point, where I just notice those subtle things where I'm not at my peak. I can feel myself, and it's physically I'm not as energetic, but also mentally I'm usually a little less clear. Emotionally, maybe I'm a little more blah. It really is tied to all the layers of the body. And it's like, oh man, like just go for a walk, go outside, whatever it is, water your lawn or your garden, just to get outside and stand on the earth and breathe in fresh air. It's like all those simple basic medicines, I think, have so much power and potential. It's just giving people the knowledge that, like, yeah, this stuff like earthing, man, like putting your feet in the dirt is like so good for inflammation and all these other things. And it's like almost too good to believe for people. They're like, so you're telling me all I have to do is just go stand outside on the dirt with my shirt off and it will benefit my mood and my physical well-being and my life quality? Like, yeah, it really is that simple.
Well, and I love that you highlighted that, because there is this misconception in the public eye that exercise means driving to the gym in this special attire and getting on this treadmill or elliptical and just doing this grueling steady state cardio that you hate every minute of under these artificial junk lights, feeling judgments from other people in the gym. And there's just this stigma that's what exercise is. Like, it fits in this little box and you have to do it this way. And if you don't like that, well, then I'm just not going to exercise. And it's ludicrous, because you and I both know gyms are not the healthiest place to be, and on top of that, like you said, there's a barrier of entry and a big time commitment and a big, kind of build up. And that is what destroys compliance. That is why people can't sustain their fitness routine, because they hate it. And it requires this hour or 90-minute time chunk. And it's just not meant to be that way. It's as simple as going outside for a walk in the sunshine, one of the most enjoyable and accessible activities to all of us. Now, I do have some patients that live in the Pacific Northwest and East Coast. And I'm like, the number one thing you could do is move closer to the equator if you want to better your health, because it is hard to feel good when you are in Seattle in the wintertime, or if you're under, 5 feet of snow in Canada for 3 months out of the year. Like, it is hard. I'll go to the snow for, a trip for a few days. I'll be like, I'm like a fiend, dude. I got to get back to San Diego. I got to get back to the sunshine, because I'm not doing well, even though I'm having fun snowboarding and hanging with friends. Like, this is not my element. And it's just that contrast you shared. Like, once you experience the profound shifts in your mood, in your energy, in your overall sense of well-being, and your quality of life, when you're getting out in the sun, you're moving your body, you're exposing your body to these natural elements in nature that we're meant to really thrive with our biology. And then you don't do that for a few days. You're like, this is what average people feel like? Jesus Christ. Like, we need to start getting people in tune with this stuff. So I want to touch on this a little bit more, because back to the depression piece, It is a spiral, and people may be listening to this and they may say like, oh, easy for you guys to say, you're in good shape. You already got all this momentum going. Like, I don't know what to do. And I can't even get out of bed, let alone go outside and exercise. And so I'm a big fan of really bringing in super small amounts. Like, it doesn't have to be a 30-minute workout. It doesn't have to even be a workout. It just could be walk outside for 10 minutes, but what do you suggest for people who are just either always in this perpetual back and forth of like, all right, I'm in my fitness routine for a few months and I fall off, then I get back on, then I fall off? Because I think that's majority of folks. Or also for folks who are in their off phase right now and they just can't kickstart the engine. They can't get that momentum going. What do you suggest to really just kind of get the ball rolling in the right direction?
I got goosebumps right now, bro, just because I love that. And I really passionately feel like two things that can really help people with this, because I get it. And it's like, first of all, it's unlearning all of the shit that we've learned about, like what you said, oh, exercise. Okay, I'm going to go exercise. And that means I'm going to jump into this little box of like ideas and conceptions about like who I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do and what exercise is supposed to be like. And especially the more I go on my journey and realizing like some of the biggest things that you see around the world throughout time and history is dance, song and dance, man. And that concept to me being a very masculine, formal football player, strength and conditioning coach, we don't stop playing those silly little games. Like that was what I think. Like strength and conditioning is really serious stuff. We got to work out, and it's got to be in this order. And if you don't do it like that, then you're not doing it right. Like that judgment of like what exercise was supposed to be like myself. And then the older I get, I'm like seeing, especially yoga has totally cracked me open in so many ways with that conversation, because it's non-linear and it's much more intuitive based. You're just moving your body and breathing in synchronicity with the expansion and contraction of your movement, of your spine. And that alone, of just like that concept, like really took a long time and had profound transformation for me in reconceptualizing what exercise was to me, even of like Qigong, another great example of like, you're kind of just standing there and moving and breathing. You're not really doing much, but it's just but internally, all those things, you're still checking all those boxes. You're doing all those things. And like, again, another one that I just think of being in the college recreational center as a trainer, Zumba. I used to like make fun of Zumba because I'm like, oh, how silly is that? They're just like jumping around and dancing. And then the older I got, the more I'm like just observing people coming out of a Zumba class. They're so high, they're so stoked, like, and they're just jumping around. And like the strength coach in me is like, well, that's a lot of impact on the knees, and like they're not going through full ranges of motion. It's like, dude, who cares? They're stoked. That's not my thing. And so that brings me to point number one. Point number one is find what you love to do what you love and love what you do. I live by that in my life, especially I'm a bit of a hedonist myself and I'm very passionate. So I go after the things that I desire. And to me, that is like such a door in for people, a free pass to like, dude, it's okay if it looks funny. It's okay. Like, and that's where you get to experiment with like all these different cultural traditional practices of dance and movement and breath, whether it's yoga or qigong or tai chi, or in Hawaii, the ancient Hawaiian practice of ulu, which is just the same shit. It's moving your body, moving your spine, breathing, moving energy within your own being. And, adding music to that, so powerful. We already know so much about how, vibration influences expression, and sound is a vibration, light is a vibration. And so that added component of music and breath and dance, movement, creates a trance state, a non-ordinary state of consciousness, sometimes referred to as ecstasis. Stealing Fire is a great book I recommend by Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel. They're the founders of the Flow Genome Project. And basically, how are all the ways that we can tap into this different, non-ordinary, potentially expanded state of consciousness that has these different biological, physiological, biochemical, neurological effects? And can we take those things and use them as tools to optimize human performance and overall life quality and well-being? And then we take it back like, oh man, cultures traditionally have been tapped into some of this wisdom forever. Certain drum beats creating a frequency that puts you into a non-ordinary state of consciousness. Music, guys, everybody knows a good song comes on and you start dancing to it a little bit, like it's hardwired into our DNA. And so to remove that concept, I think, to come back to what you said of what exercise is, and come back into the realization that it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're moving your body. So the primary concern to me is, do you enjoy that activity? Do you enjoy doing it? Like you said, people go to the gym. It's so funny, man. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You see all the fitness stuff online, and like people are like, oh, today's cardio day. Cardio is like a made up word.
It is. Yeah. And I can't speak highly enough about this concept, because like I do a ton of cardio, but not in the traditional sense. You'll never find me on a Stairmaster. I'm out surfing, I'm out mountain biking, I'm on my stand-up paddleboard. I'm doing things that I freaking love that I would do, even if it, calories burned, all the metabolic benefit, all that stuff aside. Like none of that really matters, because at the end of the day, it gets me in flow. It connects me with my friends who I go out with. It gets me out in nature. And those are the things I really encourage people to seek out. Seek out what you enjoy. Is it kayaking? Is it bike riding? Is it, like you said, dance or Pilates, whatever it is? It doesn't have to be some Peloton workout. in the corner of your bedroom when you're just grinding it out because you have to or feel like it's the only way. There's so many ways to get outside and move your body, and finding ones you enjoy is the golden ticket to making it sustainable and making that change a new habit, making it lasting.
And it's such a perspective shift, because it really ties into me to like the whole point of don't focus on the destination, focus on the journey. You know, and when you focus on the journey, you end up at that you're gonna end up at that destination anyway. As long as there's some strategy there, you're likely gonna get really close to where you're aiming either way. And so you can either enjoy the process of getting there, or like make it this hellacious, struggle, which, like we talked about earlier, struggle isn't bad, but the perspective of, I want to lose 10 pounds. This is why in any coaching call, they always, Simon Sinek was right.
Yep.
What's your why? It's like, yeah, you want to lose 10 pounds, but why? Well, because I want to fit it into my clothes. Why? Because when you fit into your clothes, you feel good, whatever that is. And it's the same thing with exercises, like you said so well, is I do the things that I enjoy to do, and they just happen to be active things where I'm moving my body because I know that that is a requirement for me. That's a need that I have. I need to pump the water wheel to make sure I don't get stagnant. Stagnancy breeds death. A stagnant pond, all the life dies because there's not movement through it. And so exercise, in the sense of just being physically active, totally changes that. Like in the gym, dark, neon, all those things, like, oh no, just be physically active with your body, move your body. And if you can do that while doing something that you enjoy, then you'll get to where you want to go. You get the six pack, you get the health, you get the strong immune system, you get the abs, whatever it is that you want as the physical end goal is the reward you get for focusing on doing what you love consistently, moving your body, checking those boxes, managing your lifestyle factors appropriately. And the second point to that, doing what you love what you do, and then try all the things. Try all the flavors of the ice cream. Like, oh, that's Zumba. Not my thing. That cool though. Like they love it. That's cool. Not my thing. Like Qigong, totally my thing. Ecstatic dance, not my thing. You're not going to catch me in ecstatic dance. Like I so support that. And I think it's really good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. And that's okay. I know what my things are and they aren't, but you never know until you try. And then the second piece I have on that is, and you'd said it, is community support. And this is, again, going back to positive psychology, because compliance, like you said, adherence to me is the number one focus point for a coach.
That's the name of the game.
To the online space. Like when there's personal training, you got to be there Tuesday to meet me at 7 a.m. There's more accountability because you don't want to leave that person. Online training is a little more ambiguous. There's not quite that same level of direct accountability. So how can we get people to increase their adherence, which is ultimately going to get them the results that they want? Well, we got to reprogram the mind, subconscious mind to conscious mind, and having some kind of system in place that allows for the reprogramming to take place more easily is going to obviously increase your results. And in the process of learning new habits, it's very clear in the research that an external support group is going to increase your motivation, because you've got a team, you've got people there that you are accountable to. It's a lot easier to fall short with yourself or maintain accountability to yourself when there's other people involved. You don't want to let them down. And so it gives you that little extra boost to show up. And this is actually one of the reasons why I really think CrossFit is on to some really gold nuggets, because you've got people that are coming in that have all of these like doubts, fears, whatever. It's really hard to start a program. You don't know how to do it. But then you struggle with other people that are focused on the same end goal as you. You guys have this one pointed intention to better your health, to complete the workout. That automatically you're like, yeah, we got this. Like, let's go, guys. And so even in the research, it shows it increases adherence just by having that support group around you. And that's specifically more important in the beginning. Once you start to cultivate those feelings of well-being within yourself, and you've got a little bit more of a grooved neural pattern, a new habit, then it's easier to, like, for guys like you and me, it's a non-negotiable at this point. I know that's one of my medicines. I need to go move my body. I need to do these certain things. And that's non-negotiable.
And that's how I think people need to frame it, is that it's not this like optional thing that's like a bonus and maybe here, maybe there. It's more like people, like everyone brushes their teeth, or you drink water, you eat food, you do these necessary things to survive as a human. Add exercise, add sunlight, add movement to this list, because if you don't do those, no, you won't drop dead in 3 days or 4 days like you would if you stop drinking water, or, you're going to slowly begin to die inside though. It's slowly starting to create the deficits and the imbalances that are going to make you feel absolutely awful about yourself. And also physically, your energy, your zest for life, everything just starts to slowly decline. And so when you start to view it as that, as a medicine, as an essential part of being a human in the world today, then you'll start to actually kind of shift it from like, it's this thing I should do that I sometimes do that I don't usually do, to like, this is part of being a human this is what I need to do to survive.
Yeah, man. And that community support is such a, finding that thing that you love to do that makes it not a drag. Because not every day you're going to be like, fuck yeah, you're going to feel the drag. And like, if you're not doing something that you love, it makes it a lot harder to follow through. And if you don't have a support group, it makes it a lot harder to follow through. There's actually this is something I read a long time ago, but it was talking about social exercise is actually one of the highest producers of oxytocin. Cuddling babies and petting dogs, like those produce a lot of oxytocin. Social exercise is another one of those things. And then you think, again, we go back to traditional cultures where they would get together every week and do a dance and like have ritual around that. And it's so funny because it's that intuitive body wisdom that's like, that was like that weekly medicine, like they come together and then like everybody's like, good to see you, Bob. Okay, cool. See you next week, like for our next dance session so we can take our medicine together, and like looking at it from that perspective of community support, doing something that you love, it like totally obliterates that model of like, you gotta exercise and it's gotta suck and you gotta just suffer, and like the David Goggins, like there's a time and a place for that. But for most people that are just looking to go from not feeling great to feeling better, like that, those first couple steps, like find a support group, find an activity that you love to do. It doesn't have to be this like massive transition and journey. Like, like the number one, I tell people, plan B, always go for a 20-minute walk outside. Like anybody can do that. You can walk in circles in your driveway,
And I like to really I'll add one more point to your list of, that are awesome. And that's to really decrease the time commitment. That's the number one excuse people have, is I don't have time. And for some people, it's a legitimate excuse. They got kids, they got a full-time job, they got social obligations, they got all sorts of things on their to-do list. And I get it, but exercise doesn't have to be this hour-long thing. It can literally be 5 minutes of some push-ups and body weight squats. And that's going to be enough for the average person to feel better and to start getting some results in so many capacities. And that's why I put together my whole minimum effective dose training protocol, which are 10 to 12-minute workouts. Would more volume make you, excel faster? Yeah, but it's not necessary. And it's usually going to be a big deterrent from sustaining the habit and the routine and actually getting into your groove. And so by breaking it down, and for this style of training, I give it out to everyone for free. I could charge for these programs, but it's really my way of giving back, of saying, here's an effective strategy to get a lot of benefit in a very small amount of time that's mentally very easy. It's simple, it's effective. And that is what I think most people are missing, is they think, if I can't do 45 minutes on my cardio machine, I'm just not going to do it at all because I don't have time for 45 minutes. And it's like, no, you could do 5 minutes, you could do 10 minutes, and it's going to be so much more effective than nothing. And it's really oftentimes going to lead to more time, because once you get the blood flow and the heart rate up, you get, all these different chemicals being produced in the body and the brain. Before you know it, you're like, all right, I'm here, I'm in it, let's keep it rolling. But even if you do stop after 5 minutes, like, people underestimate what I like to call trigger sessions, which are just brief bursts of movement sprinkled in throughout your day. It doesn't have to be this hour-long time block at the beginning or end of your day. It could be, and that works for some people. But what's more effective is just sprinkling it in every hour, every couple hours, getting up from your desk, going outside for 5 minutes, doing a set of push-ups, set of lunges, maybe a little plank action, going back inside, getting right back to work. Everyone has time for that. Like, no one's going to be like, no, I didn't go pee all day today, John, because I didn't have 2 minutes to myself. Like everyone has a few minutes here and there for themselves, no matter how busy you are. And so those are really good opportunities to mix in this little burst of movement, to mix in some fresh air and some natural light, and couple it all together and stack these habits so that it is time efficient. And, you look back at the end of a day of sprinkling in these a handful of times, and you're going to get as much done as the guy that went to the gym and spent 90 minutes of his morning, grinding it out on the treadmill.
100%, man, 100%. And that's really becoming more apparent with COVID. It's giving people that opportunity to like, well, I can't drive to the gym, so I got to do it at home. And then they do it at home and they're like, shoots, actually, I have like an extra 30 minutes because I don't have to drive 15 minutes both ways to the gym. Like there's so many of those things. And like, I have a very similar, I call it movement hygiene. And this is something that I have implemented with myself with great success. And one point that I did want to touch on just a little bit in this conversation is breath, too, the power of breath, which falls in the conversation in the umbrella of movement because you're moving your diaphragm. But the power of those little bouts, man, to reset. I mean, this was a research study. It was 6 deep belly breaths can totally reset your autonomic nervous system and shift you from a sympathetic state into a parasympathetic state. 6 breaths, man. I mean, like if you look at, for example, like a 4 in, 2 hold, 4 out, 2 hold breath count, which is what I start everybody on as like the most basic 2 to 1 inhale and exhale to hold. It's just like box breathing, but a little less hold, a little less time in the holds. It's usually a little easier for people, especially starting out. But I mean, that's a 12-second breath, 5 breaths. That's 1 minute. In 1 minute, you can reset your nervous system. Like that is so powerful. I mean, like somebody cuts you off in traffic, you're in a stressful work meeting, your kid or spouse freaks out on you. Literally before that trigger even is finished, you can have already reset your nervous system by just doing deep belly breaths. And this is just to touch on the power of the breath, especially in our conversation about prescriptions and a pill for that kind of thing, that mentality. When I was in India, I was actually, we were at this convention that was talking about, it's called the Ministry of Ayush, which is Ayurveda, yoga, and there's the definitions hit homeopathy is one of them, Siddha or something like that. But they're basically just natural alternative practices of medicine. Mm-hmm. And yoga is one of them that they consider a practice of medicine. And I 100% do. That's a whole another podcast. But one of the most key pieces that I took away from that convention was a research study that they had done where they took a breathing technique for 5 minutes a day, which is alternate nostril breathing, which literally is just alternating your inhales and your exhales between your nostrils. It's a really easy technique that you can find on Google. And 5 minutes of doing that a day was as effective as the leading pharmaceutical antidepressant with 0 side effects, obviously, because you're breathing versus
beneficial side effects.
Yeah. The long list of things that a medication can cause is as effective as the leading medication for 5 minutes. This is how much effort you have to put in. You have to move a finger from your one nostril to the other. Like it can't get simpler. It can't get more time efficient. And it's proven to be as effective, if not parentheses, more effective than the leading medication and no side effects. And I mean, just the fact that you got to pay for that medication.
Yeah, I know. And exercise consistently beats out different SSRI drugs and other antidepressant medications when head to head all the time, showing that it's more effective and it's so simple. And all these things that we're talking about, I love this conversation because a lot of people in our space of, holistic health and wellness get all caught up in the biohacks and the technologies and the vitamins and the supplements. And, you got to get this red light panel and this infrared sauna and this cold plunge and all these different PEMF mats. And, you go down the list, and I love all that stuff. I have all that stuff because it's my passion and it's, something I really enjoy. And it's obviously a key component to my work, but you don't need any of it. All of these are just trying to mimic the benefits you get for free in nature. So between exercise, breath work, sensible sun exposure, grounding, all of these things really just are the foundation to a healthy, happy and vital life. I mean, that's all it is, man. And once you realize that, it's one thing to hear it on a podcast or to hear someone talking about it and be like, yeah, that sounds fine, guys. I'm not doubting you. You probably have some good points, but when you experience it, when it's that visceral knowing, that gnosis, that is what really flips the switch, and your life is forever changed. Because now, I have these tools with me anytime, anywhere. I don't have to buy them. I don't have to consult with anyone else. I have these vital, important life skills that I can carry with me forever, that can change my state, that can enhance my mood, that can enhance every aspect of my well-being. And once you realize that, it's just, man, it's a completely different game of life that you're playing.
And I mean, even on that too, I'm sure this is what drives you, because oh man, goosebumps again. It's what drives me to watch other people go through, because I always use this example of, it's like it's a common parable in spiritual teachings in the journey to enlightenment. Once you get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, you don't even want to keep it for yourself. All you want to do is like, hey, everybody, like, I want you to feel what I'm feeling. This is so cool. And to watch other people go through that aha moment and have that subjective, direct experience, that epiphany, wow, this really does work. Like, then it's like, yes, go forth, my child, and share these gifts with everyone. And like, for me, the movement hygiene is just, I'm sure it's like identically the same to the protocol that you have, but I call it the movement hygiene, where it's 5 minutes of breathing and stillness. You're sitting and breathing. And then it's 10 minutes of mobilizing different stretches, what from some people would look and go, oh, that's yoga. Some other people would look and be like, oh, that's functional range conditioning, spinal segmentation, cat-cow. Words don't matter. You're moving your body for 10 minutes in different positions through full range of motion to get the most bang for your buck. Some glute bridge, some core stuff, some spinal mobilizing, mobilize the hips, the spine, the shoulders, activate the posterior chain and the deep stabilizer muscles. Nothing crazy, 5-6 movements, 10 minutes, and then 5 minutes, exactly what you said, of push-ups and squats, 20 on, 10 off, 10 sets, 5 minutes, and you've got in that breath, stillness, movement, and quote unquote exercise, to where you can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes and apply those separately throughout your day, depending on, just like anything, it's a variable that you then understand, okay, 5 minutes of stillness and breathing is going to bring me down and center me and calm me. 5 minutes of squats and push-ups is going to bring me up. It's going to stimulate me and it's going to energize me and bring more focus and alertness. So you start to be the manager of your dials, where you can turn this one up and turn this one down. Oh, if I push on this vagus nerve, it does this. And so you start to be able to manage your factors, turning up and turning down the knobs appropriately. But like you said, 5 minutes of breathing, 10 minutes a stretch here and there, 5 minutes, and if over time you start to put those things together and you can create some kind of synergistic effect of the moving and the breathing and all of it at once, then even better. But it doesn't have to be like that, especially on step one. And the biggest thing, like, this is why I give it away for free too. It's free 20-minute movement hygiene. And I'll run challenges where just to get people in to experience that for 7 days, 20 days, whatever it is. Like, I've done this one for 20 days before. And it's crazy, man. Dude on 17 medications, bro. Rheumatoid arthritis, overweight, diabetes, the whole works. He just signs up for this 20 minutes, move your body. And he couldn't even do a couple of the movements all the way. Dude was like pretty old and all the factors involved. 20 days later, man, just doing this, he's like, and not only did he see change in his body, but then that motivated him to continue on and expand the journey and start looking into some of the other technologies and skills that he can incorporate. And after working with him for a couple months after that, he worked with me one-on-one for a while. He went from 17 medications down to 11, down to 9, and reduced his blood pressure medication significantly. All by his doctor's orders. His doctor's like, oh, you don't need to be on these medications anymore. Your biomarkers are way better. You're way healthier. What have you been doing? And he's like, dude, 20 minutes of just wiggling around a little bit, breathing, moving, squatting, And like, I was that case study, that's like, oh, I can't. I'm too this, and like, no, just a little dose consistently. Like Paul Chek, one of my biggest mentors, 1% for 100 days is 100% increase. And 100 days is 3 months, man. Like that's not a long time.
It's not.
A new whole habit, you can have 100% transformation in your life from just doing something that you like to do consistently a little bit every day. And then the next thing you know, like you and I, you're at that point where you're like, this is a non-negotiable. I have to have this in my life because I am so addicted to feeling good. I'm so addicted to well-being.
Yeah, 100%. I want to kind of tie up some of the depression piece because I have a couple other things I want to dive in with you, and we're going a little long here. So one thing I think I want people to take away from this conversation is that depression is really a signal. It's pain, and pain is one of the greatest catalysts for change, for personal growth. And while depression can be terribly disruptive, it comes down to how you frame it. And if you choose to have the perspective that it's a signal, that it's guiding you towards a realization, maybe it's that you need to move more, like we're talking about in this conversation. Maybe it's that you need to remedy some relationship stuff, improve your nutrition, get outside more, make a different path in your career. There's a lot of things, but understanding that it's not just bad luck. It's not just genetic. It's a signal, and you need to listen to it because it can be such a great catalyst to take action. So I want everyone listening in to take one action today to work towards the life you desire for yourself. It could be applying some of the strategies John's going over in terms of some brief movement, a little bit of breath work, a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of just minor tweaks with this compound effect you're referring to, where you just 1% is not a lot of change. It's not a lot of new things. It's not like you're transforming everything and you got to allocate 5 hours a day to this new practice. It's simple. Take 5 minutes every day, and you'll be amazed when you look back, even within a couple of weeks, let alone a few months and a few years. I mean, these things just compound and grow and really build momentum and energy in the right direction to fuel you into the direction that you need to go. So that's one thing I've learned through my path, because I think depression is a spectrum. It's not like you're completely destroyed. You can't get out of bed. You're on all these medications, ready for a psych ward because you're so depressed. A lot of people just get it mildly. A lot of us just feel down from time to time, and just our mood could use a little support, and we're just feeling off. It would be the way I hear a lot of people describe it. And that's I think on the spectrum of depression. It's like you have some diagnosis or you have some disease, but there's room for improvement. There's room to improve your mental and emotional well-being. And these are effective, proven, simple strategies that won't cost you a penny, that I encourage everyone to really go full force into.
Yeah, I so support that, because it's you don't often play up to the expectations. You fall back on your habits, you fall back on your training. And even just as an anecdote of myself, yesterday, Saturday and Sunday, I went to this kind of like a house gathering concert on Saturday. It's called a kirtan for any of you yogis out there. And then Sunday, I went to bed later than usual. Monday, I was just a little more tired, a little off. Respecting that, allowing that, and accepting that, and not judging myself for being down. And like you said, pain is information. The pain teacher can teach you so much if you're willing to embrace and lean into the sensation instead of run away from it, and use it as a signal, as a tool to like, oh, what's a little off? What knobs do I need to turn a little bit? So I took a nap yesterday. I spent more time outside. I wasn't even doing anything active. I was literally just like standing outside and watering my plants, and like just knowing that I need an extra pill of sunshine today. Whatever that is, like I just need a little bit more of that. And another thing too, just on the conversation of pain and depression specifically, this has been probably sunlight, movement, and the other most noticeable factor for me that influences my depression is inflammation via nutrition. Mm-hmm. And this is so significant to me now. My digestive system and my microbiome is so pristine that any deviation from that is so significantly noticeable. And I can go back. That's why I love journaling so much, because you can go back and see like, oh, I did that 5 days ago, and now I'm still feeling like shit today, or whatever it is. Like, you can start to make more parallels that will help you to not repeat the same mistakes over and over. But I can go back to, I don't drink anymore, but I used to be a big drinker, really partied hard in college and drank a ton. And now even just a little bit of alcohol is too much for my system. It's not that I don't drink because I have any ethical or moral obligation not to. It's because I just don't desire to feel shitty the next day, 2 days, 3 days of whatever that is going to be. And the same thing with eating, like not eating sugar and artificial foods. If you have anything like that, it's such a significant stimulus to the system where, like, you get the sugar hangover, or, even I'm very sensitive to gluten. Like, I'm not allergic to it, but I just noticed I feel shittier when I eat gluten. And usually whenever it's a gluten containing food, there's likely other things in it too that are also contributing to increasing in inflammation. And I just am so sensitive to that now, to know that sunlight, movement, and nutrition are like the three biggest knobs I have to manage to make sure that I don't slip into states of apathy and depression, because like you said, it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And I don't go back to my life is a waste, all the super intense. I don't go there anymore. But I mean, from 100 to 90, even just coming down that 10%, it's noticeable. And I'm in control. We are in control of those epigenetic, those lifestyle factors. And all you have to do is get in the knowledge of what things move, what buttons, and then apply. Just start tinkering with those knobs. 5 minutes of breath a day, whatever it is.
Yeah, I love the nutrition piece, which is a big part of my work, because most of these neurotransmitters that make us feel good, like serotonin and dopamine, they're synthesized in the gut. And if your gut is imbalanced and you have dysfunction in your microbiome, well, guess what? They're not going to be produced at adequate amounts that your brain needs to feel freaking good. And so I'm right there with you. And once you realize the differences and just understand, because I've been taking a break from booze and all these types of things for a while myself, it just doesn't serve you. And when you say like, hey, this just doesn't serve me, I feel better without it. It's not something that I feel the need or draw to. It's an easy pass, and that's the thing I've come to realize when it comes to like people who think, oh my God, you're so disciplined in this or that. It's like, no. I just listen to the biofeedback my body's giving me. And I actually understand, like, if something makes me feel like complete garbage, I don't really have the desire to consume it or to, go after it, because I realize I put one and one together. I ingest this, I feel this way. Mm-hmm. So when I ingest something that makes me feel like trash, I'm not rushing to go back to it. You know what I mean? So that's a big thing. And so getting into some of the more details on nutrition, I want to just kind of do a couple rapid fire questions here for you. Sure. What do you eat on a typical day? Like, I think it's about midday for you in Maui. You're a few hours behind me. What'd you have for breakfast today?
Yeah, I'm a really big proponent on JERF, just eat real food. That's something I heard in 2013 that I thought was super catchy. And I was like, oh, I'm taking that. I'm taking that with me, because it simplifies the whole process for people of what do I eat, how much, what types, and all that. Like, let's just not eat food like products, and like, let's just eat things that come from the earth. And so that's like number one for me. That's like one of the biggest priorities. And I really lived that. I started that in 2013. There's a funny story, but it's a little long behind that. But basically, I had a psychedelic experience that totally woke me up and was like, yo, you got to live this. Like, stop fucking around. And mm-hmm. I was like, oh, if I'm going to be one of the leading health and fitness experts, coaches, leaders in the world, then I need to walk the walk. And I exercise and train and all that. But my diet was trash. I grew up with really, really unhealthy eating style. And then in 2013, I was like, okay, I'm going to change it around, start eating real food. And I mean, that transition was incredible in itself. I mean, I lost 8% body fat. I lost 16 pounds in a month. And that like inspired me to start doing bodybuilding. And so that was like a whole catalyst to my journey. But really, it was just as simple as like, okay, I'm just going to stop buying food-like products and only buy living food. And so that's something that's just like a non-negotiable for me. And like, of course, 90-10, whatever, like I'll have a snack here and there. I mean, not even really, like you said now, I not to digress, but Charles Poliquin, he says, discipline is a myth. It's passion, love. You have so much love for yourself and for the feeling of feeling good that it's not a discipline thing. It's like I literally, like, I feel so good and I know that that's going to make me feel not good. And so I just I don't even have the desire to make that decision. But on a daily intake for me, I usually eat twice a day or so. I'm a big proponent of fasting, more so for spiritual reasons than physical. But I started intermittent fasting back at the same time I started eating real food in 2013, and I did that for years, and I still kind of do, but without the rigor of the 16-8 model. And I focus more on extended fasts for the other benefits, the mental, emotional, and spiritual benefits outside the physical. Of course, obviously, it's autophagy is happening. You're regenerating cells, and you've got all these good things that are happening. Stimulation of BDNF, which improves brain function, and so on. But for my typical daily intake now, I'll usually have a coffee with a couple tablespoons of grass-fed butter or coconut oil and about like a half scoop of chocolate protein powder. Blend it up, turns it into a nice little like hot chocolate. And that's usually the first calories that I take in for the day. If I don't have the coffee in the morning, then I'll usually just continue on until I have some form of food later around like midday. But for example, today I had the coffee. That's all I've had so far. I'm gonna strength train after this, and then I'll have a smoothie, which is typically, some fruit, a couple bananas, one or two bananas, some sprouts or some leafy greens. I've got a bunch of sunflower sprouts and microgreens in the fridge right now. And then a little bit of chocolate protein powder. Sometimes something that I started recently that I actually really enjoy is chopping up about an ounce or so. If that, I don't know, I've never weighed it, but like a small serving of venison liver. I'll
Nice.
chop that up and put it in the smoothie. So I've got raw liver. Liver's so incredibly good for you. It's so nutrient dense, but it's pretty tough to eat, especially
Yeah.
venison liver. It's pretty gamey.
Yeah.
And so when you cook it, the smell is what gets me. But when you chop it up raw, frozen into your smoothie and blend it, you don't even notice it. And it's actually, you get a little bit more out of it raw than you do cooking it. So
Oh yeah.
I've been doing that and really enjoying that as a way to get in some organ meat through the day. And then dinner is almost always some combination of the four food groups. The way that I look at it is you've got carbs, proteins, fats, and then veg. I consider veggies their own food group because they're not very calorically dense. They don't have much other than a little bit of carbohydrates, depending on how starchy they are, but they're full of vitamins and minerals. And the fiber really is the key there that helps the microbiome. It's food for them and they eat that, and then they help with everything else as a byproduct. So the veggies, usually I've got like some kind of leafy greens in there, sprouts or lettuce or kale, mushrooms and leeks. These are like literally things that I eat every day. And then avocados are a big source of fat for me. Olive oil, nuts and seeds, other fats there. And then as far as carbohydrates, beans, quinoa, beets, carrots, potatoes, starchy veg. And then proteins, the main two sources of protein, I should say three sources of protein that I get, which are really a good combination of proteins and fats, would be fish, venison, and eggs. And going back to the JERF model, it's all locally sourced. I get my eggs
Yep.
from Bees, which is a farm out here. They're a biodynamic farm, totally regenerative. They are incredible. Like the guy that owns that, 100% integrity, just an incredible guy that's really doing good work there, full integrity, which I really support them. And then I get my venison from a local hunter and I get my fish from a local fisherman at the market. And so
There you
everything's
go.
market. I don't even really go to the grocery store. Like truly, I order some things on Amazon, like bulk and quinoa and bulk of my black beans and like a couple other purchases. I get fresh pressed olive oil from a company that does seasonal rotations on olive oil. But I mean, it's like I rarely, when COVID hit, it was a joke to me and my friends, or it's like, oh, I get to just, nothing changes for me. I get to keep doing exactly what I was doing. I just have more of an excuse now to not go to the grocery store. So that's pretty much a day in the life for me, with some animal meats of some kind, some eggs, maybe some yogurt here and there, again from the local farm when they have it, sauerkraut, and then veggies, starches, carbs, and some fats from avocados and olives and nuts and seeds.
Love it, man. So I want to go back to the very beginning on the coffee. So you're the founder of an awesome organic coffee company called Jerf Life, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to dive into some of the details on optimizing people's daily cup of joe, because I become kind of a connoisseur, back in when I first started drinking coffee in like mid college, you had like the shitty drip coffee makers that, use like the Folgers, god awful pre-ground beans that shouldn't even be called coffee because it's just a toxic nonsense that in a, plastic jug. And now I've gotten to the point where I only source biodynamic, organic beans that are freshly roasted and, grown at high elevation. And I, make sure the water is the perfect temp between 195 and 200. And I brew it in my French press, and all the different things that I kind of got into over the years. And so I wanted to hear from you, just being, owner of a coffee company, you surely know more than I do about coffee. What are some of the top tips you kind of suggest for people to get the most out of their coffee from a health perspective? And then also some of the top mistakes you see people are commonly making.
Oh, great, dude. Great questions. Those are awesome. And I totally feel you. I had the same exact journey with coffee. I didn't even start drinking coffee until my senior year at college out of necessity. So it was just going ham. And it was just purely fuel, just like plug those and just chug 16 ounces so you could get another 2 hours in the library. And I didn't actually start drinking healthy coffee until when was this? It's probably 2017, I would say 2016, 2017. And I was watching a TED Talks video that was talking about coffee beans and fresh roasting coffee beans. And so to kind of answer both of your questions there, the first being, what are the things that you can do to optimize your coffee experience, ideally improve the nutritional quality of it? The first one, of course, is get organic beans. This is something actually that not a lot of people know, but coffee is one of the most highly sprayed foods with pesticides. And that's because the coffee bean itself is actually a seed that comes from the fruit of a coffee cherry. And coffee cherries, just like any other berry or cherry, they don't have a shield around them, and they're a nice, sweet, yummy treat for bugs and other animals. So the pests, in that sense, that they're trying to keep away, they spray really high amounts of super toxic pesticides on and insecticides, which is what I'll talk a little more specifically about, on your coffee beans. And the thing is most coffee is imported internationally. And so the regulations are non-existent, man. It's pretty intense out there, like what they can get away with as far as cultivating and processing is pretty gnarly. And so just for example, your typical conventional coffee, I may be off by a couple numbers or something, but it's something like the average conventional coffee has up to 42 different pesticides sprayed on it. And out of that, this is something I thought was like super alarming. I think 5 or 7 of them are on the World Health Organization's list of extremely hazardous to human health. And that's because they essentially have this enzyme in them that goes into vertebrates and starts to like dissolve your spinal cord. That's not quite exactly what's happening, but like, whoa, that doesn't sound healthy. That's super intense.
Yeah.
And it's really effective. And so they, like in the European Union and other countries, these are completely banned. And because the coffee's grown outside of the States and then imported, there's kind of a loophole there where they can get away with using some of those things outside of the country and then shipping it in that you wouldn't be able to use in the United States. So conventional coffee is extremely toxic and can really damage your microbiome. And so that's just one thing to note of, make sure that you're buying USDA organic coffee. And even the USDA organic, there's some wiggle room there. So even beyond the certification itself, personal research, personal discretion, like find a company that you trust, that is, they're living it, they're really authentic and transparent. And I think that's so important. And you got to really know what is happening in that import process. Like, for example, to bring certain types of beans to Hawaii, there's certain regulations there, like Ethiopian beans, you can't even ship to Hawaii because there's some bacteria or microbe or something that is like, what's the word? Invasive. And so like they can't even get certain types of coffee beans here. So there's a lot more to that conversation than you'd think. And then like some crazy facts. There's This was in 2007 or something, like a census of the amount of coffee. There's like 3 billion pounds of coffee that come into, or 1.5 billion, something like that. A lot of coffee comes into America every year, and only 5% of it is organic, which is like wild, because the whole
Wow.
conversation of pesticides in general, it's not just of influencing that food and then potentially the person that's eating it. It's influencing that entire ecosystem. It's getting into the soil, it's getting into the water, which is running down into the local communities, and they're drinking that and they're getting sick. And it's wild how intense pesticides are everywhere. They're in water supply and everything everywhere. So that's just like the larger conversation. One of the big talking points with JERF is organic is so important because it's not polluting the entire planet, quite literally. So that's like the biggest thing. Make sure your coffee is organic so you're not getting the pesticides in. And then the other most important thing, which is what I learned originally when I started getting into fancy connoisseur coffee, getting all snobby with it, was fresh roasting your coffee beans. Coffee, actually, like anything, is a food. And think about rice. Rice can last a really long time. Once you cook it, then it starts to decay. The half-life process begins. It's the same thing with coffee. Think about a loaf of bread. It comes fresh out of the oven, yummy, smells good. It's all awesome. Same loaf of bread 2 weeks later sitting on the counter, gross. You don't even want to eat it. It's dry. There's no nutritional value left in it. And it's really the same thing with your coffee beans. And the recommendation is to drink your coffee within 7 to 14 days of the coffee beans being roasted. And so that is
Wow.
a super important factor, because it's not just the antioxidants, which is what coffee gets the touted as a superfood or a health food, because it has a really high level of antioxidants. And there are other nutritional benefits to coffee if consumed after it's been freshly roasted, like within that window. There's amino acids that they're still discovering. There's, research still going on. I'm sure that they'll keep finding deeper layers of this, but there's other things that are in the coffee bean that will benefit you nutritionally if you consume it within that 14-ish. I would say it's probably upwards of like a month-ish, that range. If you can drink it sooner, you'll get more nutritional value out of the coffee. So it's really important to look for freshly roasted on whatever coffee you're buying. If you can get fresh roasted coffee, not only is it like that loaf of bread coming out of the oven, the smell is usually way better, way more intense. And also you're going to get more nutritional value out of it. And one other point that I'll make in what not to do is the grinding process of the beans. You can usually buy beans either ground or whole bean. When you cut the bean, when you grind the bean, it actually accelerates the decay process. So it's recommended, just like you don't want to leave like your vitamin C out on the counter with the lid open. It'll oxidize. The same thing with the coffee beans. You don't want to leave them out in the open air for an extended period of time. So you want to consume your coffee as soon as you can within the roasting date. And then upon grinding, you want to make that coffee within like 15 minutes. You want to make it right away. So
Yep.
basically, the main rule of thumb is only grind as many beans as you're going to use for that cup that you're brewing right then and there, and leave the rest whole in some kind of sealed container, like a mason jar, glass container or something.
Room temp, or do you subscribe to the whole freezing of the beans?
Actually, that's something interesting too. I mean, like from what I've heard from these other researchers, they recommend to not freeze the bean and actually keep it at a room temperature, or just cooler than room temperature. So something like a cool, dark place like your pantry works
Mhm.
fine.
Got it. Yeah. Well, we're running up on time, John. I know I could ask you a dozen more questions on coffee because I love coffee, and it's something that I think there's a lot of room for improvement for people that, drink it daily and wouldn't mind sourcing a little better stuff, preparing it a little differently if they knew, hey, this makes a big difference. These are good things to look out for. So I love those tips that you shared, and we'll have to have you back on to talk about a lot more, and not just coffee, but I know your wealth of knowledge and a number of other topics we didn't have a chance to get to today. So in closing, where can people get some of this fantastic coffee you sell? And then where can they connect with you online and learn more about your work?
Yeah, totally. The coffee company is called Jerf Life, like you said. The website is Jerf, JERF dash a little hyphen LIFE, jerf-life.com. And you can go check us out. We've got home compostable coffee bags. completely compostable packaging for shipping, so no plastic used in our process there. And we fresh roast my roaster will fresh roast, and I'll go pick up batches from him as we go. So jerf-life.com for the coffee, check that out. And for coaching, my coaching business is Kempf Fitness Professional. You can find me everywhere on the internet with that. Just search K Fitness Pro or Kempf Fitness Professional. The website is kfitnesspro.com. And you can follow me on Instagram as well. I've got a lot of content that I put out there, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. K Fitness Pro, you'll find me all over.
Love it, man. Thanks for taking the time. And this has been an epic conversation. So really encourage people listening in to go check out your work to learn more. And I am looking forward to getting my hands on some of these coffee beans. I'm going to get an order in right away.
Yeah, buddy. I got you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you found it helpful, please share it along to anyone else you believe it can serve. You can find the show notes and resources we discussed at ryankennedyshow.com. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review for the show. Your feedback helps to support me on my mission to positively impact as many people as possible with this information. Much love, everyone.